Welcome back to my Steven Spielberg series, guys. Last time we talked about Duel, his first film. Now we're jumping ahead in time to 1991 to discuss a childhood favorite of mine, Hook. My Duel review was spoiler-free because I felt that not enough people had actually seen that film to talk too in-depth about it, and I wanted you guys to experience it on your own, and hopefully you did, and hopefully you enjoyed yourself. However, a lot of people have seen Hook. It's a very well-known film. Tons of people grew up with it just like I did, so this review is going to contain spoilers. You've been warned. And watching this film last night, I was very curious to see how it held up since I was a kid, because you know how when you're young, you're sort of oblivious to flaws in movies. You just love movies, and movies are like this magical thing that you can just watch, and you don't necessarily pay attention to the things that are wrong with the film, so I was very curious to see if the film was still as great as I thought it was when I was a kid. Hook stars Robin Williams as Peter Banning, a lawyer and an absent father. He's a fearful character, he hates flying, he's constantly not there for his children. He's so wrapped up in this multi-million-dollar business deal that he's letting his family life slip away from him. And he reluctantly agrees to visit Grandma Wendy, played by Maggie Smith, with some of the best makeup I've ever seen in a movie. For many years, I legitimately thought Maggie Smith was like 95 years old. It wasn't until I saw Sorcerer's Stone, the first Harry Potter film, and I was like, wait, holy shit, that was makeup! Wow! I mean, it still holds up really well, the makeup in this film. And it's during his visit to Wendy's house where we learn that she was the inspiration for the Peter Pan story that J.M. Barrie wrote down and created his famous book. Yet unbeknownst to Peter Banning himself, those stories weren't fiction. They were true, and they were inspired by himself because he is actually Peter Pan. He's grown up. He's forgotten about his adventures in Neverland. And that's such a great idea. What if Peter Pan grew up? The one boy that never grows up. What if he did? What would happen to that guy? How could he get back to his roots? How would he discover who he actually is? It's an amazing plot, and the fact that Spielberg directed this movie made it even more incredible, and a lot of people were excited for this movie, and it was trashed by critics. People called it Spielberg's worst film. They hated it even. People have liked it more over the years, and that could be due to the fact that kids who grew up with it are now adults, like myself. So now the film is a little more accepted, and people are actually talking about it in a positive light, whereas back in the day, people hated this movie, which I don't quite understand because by far it's better than what in my opinion is Spielberg's worst film, Always, and it's considerably better than 1941. But still, rewatching this movie, my favorite aspects of this movie are its first act and its third act. The entire opening 40 minutes or so are extremely suspenseful, actually, and that's something that I was really surprised by because as a kid, I loved this movie. I thought it was so much fun, but the opening 40 minutes of this movie are a little bit scary. Like, there are a lot of parts where I was like, ooh, that's good filmmaking, Spielberg. Like the sequence where Peter returns home and you see the glass has been broken through, and we start this really great one-take shot in which Spielberg positions his characters in different parts of the frame over and over again to almost simulate different cuts occurring, even though none of these cuts are occurring. He's so good at doing that, making one frame appear extremely interesting just by maneuvering his characters in different parts of said frame. That suspense is maintained in the scene in which Wendy tells Peter the truth, and we see Peter standing in that stance that he's so famous for in the books. This brings me to one of my favorite scenes in the film, and that is the introduction to Tinkerbell, played by Julia Roberts, and it has one of my favorite lines in the entire film.
Firefly from hell.
This is a great scene largely because of the way Robin Williams plays it. He acts as if he's having a psychotic breakdown, and he just willingly accepts it. And it's played with such comedy despite the fact that his character might actually be having a minor psychotic breakdown in this moment, but Williams captures that perfect line between hilarity and actual drama. He is such a brilliant actor. And just a little meaningless tidbit here, supposedly this couple that's rising up into the air is George Lucas and Carrie Fisher. Now we get the introduction to Neverland, and this is where some lose interest in the film, and a lot of that is due to what I feel is a problem with tone. It's very abrupt. It feels rushed. It's one of those things where you're flowing along in this film and you're feeling it and you're into it, and then something happens and you either go with it or you kind of lean into it and eventually accept it. Watching it last night, I leaned into it and eventually accepted it because I know everything that's going to happen in this movie, but watching it through adult eyes, I was able to see there are a lot of tonal inconsistencies with Hook, and I think that's really the major issue that I have with this movie, is that tonally, it's a bit all over the place. You go from the scared, fearful father, which all works very well, and that character arc that you feel as Robin Williams learns more about his history, that's the best part of Hook, I think. His arc from going from adulthood back to almost being a child again, even though he's still in an adult body. That arc, I think, is perfect, and it's the most well-realized character in the movie. Dustin Hoffman is incredible as Hook. So funny, so likable, but his character isn't the best written character. The best element of his character, I feel, is that he now has a suicidal tendency. He's old, he misses the battle, he misses war, he misses being able to duel with Peter Pan, and he just wants to die. He feels that death is the only adventure he has left, and it's very well realized in a scene in which he's arguing with Smee about having an epiphany. But that's it. It's just that one scene. They don't really go anywhere else with it, and they decide to make Hook be like a teacher who, after kidnapping Peter Pan's kids, decides to try to make them like him. And that whole aspect of the film I felt was very weak. He successfully turns Peter Pan's son against him, but not his daughter. I understand what Spielberg was going for. The film sets up a very broken father and son relationship, and throughout the film it gets even more broken until finally at the end they can hug and be wonderful and yay, it's so happy, yay. It's just that the way they went about constructing those scenes did not feel even remotely like they fit in the other film that was happening with Peter Pan training with the Lost Boys, which is awesome. Reach on down and touch your toes. Reach on down and touch your toes. How long since you looked at those? How long since you looked at those? That whole sequence is amazing. Williams plays it beautifully. There's so much comedy. There's so much humor. And the Lost Boys are awesome. I love the Lost Boys in this movie. Especially Rufio! Rufio's incredible. I mean, Rufio was like the greatest thing when I was a kid. Everybody my age wanted to be Rufio. We all wanted to have a skunk head that was red and black, wearing red tights and goth jeans. And there's actually a very beautiful scene, I feel, that actually made me tear up a little bit. It's true. Where the Lost Boys are doubting that Peter Pan is actually Peter Pan. And this one little boy approaches him and sort of feels around his face and then goes, "Oh, there you are, Peter." This leads me to the food fight scene, which always made me starved when I was a kid. Everything on that table just looked incredible. And the insult scene, oh my gosh. When I was a kid, my parents used to fast forward that because they didn't want me to say like any of the poop breath, bug snot stuff. Like it was so childish. But the best parts of it are Robin Williams. He's like, math tutor, nearsighted gynecologist. Just those things when you're a kid, you're like, huh? And then when you get older, you're like, that's amazing. The eventual scene in which Peter Pan finds his shadow, leading him to his childhood home in Neverland, it's still great to this day, and not just because of John Williams' vastly underrated score. One of his best scores, in my opinion. It carries the entire film. But his flashback sequence in which Gwyneth Paltrow had her first big role is really heartbreaking, a little bit sad, but then you feel incredibly uplifted as well. And of course, the scene that still gave me goosebumps last night when I rewatched this, it filled me with goosebumps. Peter Pan just launches out of that home. It still looks incredible. He does that awesome maneuver over the sun, and then the Lost Boys are just like celebrating as Peter Pan flies around, and Rufio just has to accept it and go, "You are the Pan. You can fly, you can fight, and you can..." It's so great. It's just so, I love that part of Hook. Some parts of Hook aren't that great, I have to admit, as an adult. Some parts of the movie just don't work that much anymore. Largely the tonally inconsistent aspect of Hook with the kids and then back to Peter Pan, and the back and forth of those two stories don't always feel intertwined. But there are scenes in this movie that fill my eyes with tears because they're just so much fun. Then there's an extremely random, out of left field scene in which Tinkerbell gets big for like no reason and kisses Peter Pan. Watching it last night, it made no sense to me. It was so random. It just didn't fit in this movie at all. And now the big war begins. Pan and the Lost Boys versus Hook and the Pirates. How did you ever manage to fit into those smashing tights again, Peter? I've waited a long time to shake your hand with this, you dark and sinister man. Have at thee. It's awesome. It's really exciting, actually. I still love the entire finale of Hook. It's really great filmmaking. Rufio coming in there and sword fighting with Hook is also really fun. And the eventual death of Rufio, I feel, is handled perfectly. It's very sad, but it's also very impactful. It says exactly what needs to be said when he's like, I wish I had a dad like you. And then it goes over to Pan's son and he's crying, and you just feel like that impact of how sometimes you have something right in front of you and you just don't appreciate it for what it is. And you feel this extremely well captured anger as Pan approaches Hook, ready for that final duel. What do you want, old man? Just you. You've got me, James Hook. Dun, 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 dun. And I love the end fight between Hook and Pan. It is classic swashbuckling action. However, there's a really stupid moment where everything just pauses and the Lost Boys and the kids are like, I believe in you. I believe in you, Peter. I believe in you, my dad, Peter Pan. It's like, what the fuck? I watched last night, I was like, that's weird. It doesn't fit. Also, the whole finale with the clock tower crocodile coming down on Hook, I never quite got that even as a kid. It's obviously dead. It's been stuffed and had a clock in its mouth, but its head moves and it belches after it swallows Hook. So is it alive and dead? I never got that as a kid, and I still don't as an adult. Another thing I never quite understood was Smee sweeping up the street. What are they hinting at? Like, did he take certain things? Is there like a mirror image of everyone from Neverland to the real world? Did he quit Neverland and become something? I mean, because it's not a dream. It's sort of hinting that the whole thing was a dream, but then Tink shows up and talks to Robin Williams. So I was like, so Hook is a movie that does have problems, and a lot of them are tonal inconsistencies. Some of the sets do look like sets, that's for sure. But overall, the journey of Pan's character, Robin Williams' brilliant portrayal of that character, and the fun, exciting action makes Hook a great time still for me to this day. I enjoy the film very much. It does have problems. It's not one of Spielberg's best, but it is certainly not his worst. I'm going to give Hook a B+. Guys, thank you so much for continuing on my journey talking about some of Spielberg's films. My next one is going to be for Minority Report. I've wanted to talk about this movie for years. I'm looking forward to doing that. Look forward to that, guys. As always, thank you very much for watching. And if you like this, you can click right here and get Stuckmanized.